But what is not fine, however, is your boy Neel Kashkari.
This guy, man.
For those of you who don't know how the FOMC works, we've talked about it on the show before. The FOMC is made up of what, 12 members?
No.
What is it?
That's 12. It's 12. The Fed's made up of 12 districts.
12 districts.
I believe it's 18 members.
Yeah, that's right. 18 members. Not all of them vote, however.
Yes.
So even though they have a seat at the table and they can provide some commentary, some thoughts on what's going on,
right,
they can't really vote to do anything.
Right.
One of those non-voting members who seems to be very vocal as of late is your boy, the Fed's Neel Kashkari.
I feel like he's trying to make a push to become future chair.
Yeah, he wants to jump in.
So like, this is the initiation process. You got to be the bad guy in the press to ultimately then take over this seat.
I disagree with you. You have to be the bad guy. It is a way to get press.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and say that this article from Yahoo, which we're going to read, titled "Fed's Kashkari, 40% chance of needing a, quote, meaningful, end quote, higher rates." Meaningful.
So not to me, what does that mean to you?
That means clickbait, and I think he's talking like 50 basis points plus. That's what I got.
I'm not. That doesn't say 25 basis points. That says 50. And for those of you out there, that just means 0.5% higher than where we currently are now.
Yeah, but see, here's the problem that I have with this, okay? I'm in Hawaii. I'm on a beach. I watch and listen to financial news all the time.
Right.
I get the little pop-up ding-ding on my Apple Watch because I don't ball hard like Adam does over at my pump with my Rolex collection.
Oh, Sexy Adam?
Sexy Adam.
Right. Fuck.
Anyway, and I get the alert on my Apple Watch. Fed's Kashkari, 40% chance of meaningfully higher rates.
Right.
The fuck?
Yeah, come on, guy.
Instantly ruining my vibe.
Right.
So, over my wife's objection, I grabbed my phone, couple Tai Chis in, which are Mai Tais with higher-end alcohol.
You like that, huh?
I just wanted to feel tropical. And I got to tell you, as rotund as I was, I needed something to take my focus off of not being skinny.
I've never been that guy that switches up my drink based on the destination or where I'm currently at.
I feel like you don't drink scotch and whiskey by a pool.
Yeah, no, you can't do that.
That's not the vibe.
But like, I feel like you're a beer guy by the pool.
Normally, but I wanted to feel a little intoxicated. So the beer wasn't going to get me there.
Yeah, but then you were sweating your ass off.
I was sweating my ass off. Is that like a reference to my weight or the temperature? Just to be clear.
Yeah, so it's not going to get you drunk, right?
No, I know. I got a little tipsy, tiny bit. It takes a lot, man.
Tipsy, huh?
I had like 7 of those fucking things before I started to feel
Holy
anything.
cow, 7?
And then later that night, my brother and I came back to the hotel with my wife, and we ordered a bottle of sake, and we finished it in 5 minutes, and the two of us just taking shots.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were on a mission.
Yeah, but I didn't get intoxicated.
I don't know. The listeners don't know. So you were out there because it was your brother's wedding.
It was my brother's wedding, the same one that polished off the bottle of sake with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to get into that later in this
And the
episode.
listeners have heard your brother. He's been on the episode, what, twice?
Twice, yeah. Not a single episode, but as part of a group episode.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, one of them was with Odun.
Yeah, one of them was with Arun. Yeah, you guys came in here and talked, and
He was popped my cherry that day.
ooh, yeah. I don't know that you can say that anymore politically.
Yeah.
Is that
I
inappropriate?
feel like that is crossing the line.
Damn. All right.
You got your choke already back. Man.
No, I'm good. Look at that. Look at that. Boom. Right back in.
That's what it took. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, at least you're not coughing up a storm anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the first paragraph of this article tells you everything you really need to know. A, quote, soft landing for the U.S. economy is more likely than not, Minneapolis Fed Reserve Bank President Neel Kashkari said on Tuesday, but there is also a 40% chance that the Fed will need to raise interest rates meaningfully to beat inflation. He goes on, and Saied, I'm sure we'll have some quotes from it, but here's my problem with this, is you've got two people using clickbait language. One, Neel Kashkari, who should know better. You're supposed to be a voice of reason and comfort, right? Give people data. The whole point of the Fed waiting and taking its time has always been they're supposed to be, quote, data-driven.
Right.
Okay? If you're going to say something like that, you need to qualify it because it can be used as clickbait to scare people. And a lot of people saw that were like, shit. They freaked out. But I'll tell you, if his first paragraph alone already says there's a 60% probability that we don't need anything. That we're done. There's a 40% probability that we need. Why does it got to be meaningful?
So
Why can't it just be we may need more increases?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
So it's clearly what's happening here is it's not just Jerome Powell that needs to maintain that hawkish tone. The press or the FOMC feels like other members that are sitting in on those meetings, excuse me, need to also maintain their hawkish tone, right? To make sure that there's still pessimism in the market to keep, customers or consumers at bay.
Yeah, and I get that. You guys want to all sound like you guys are, rowing the boat the same way.
Right.
You guys are all on the same team. I get it.
Part of a united front, if you will.
But Arun, go down to the article, the section you were just at, right there. So he said later on in the article here that, but under a still very possible turn of events, Kashkari puts the likelihood at 40%. Inflation stays sticky at near 3%. But households feel confident enough about the economy that they continue to spend, which is an interesting point that I want to get to a little bit more.
I don't agree with that statement at all.
Keeping upward pressure on prices already elevated by post-pandemic supply constraints. So I'll stop right there because he gets into some other stuff here like supply chain factors and stuff like that. But what I want to say is we've talked so much about consumer discretionary spending, about how all this pandemic PPP and stimulus, right? All these things put more money into consumers' bank accounts than ever before. And because people had more in savings that they had historically, particularly in the last 10, 15 years before that, they felt a comfort with spending on things like vacations, like travel, like experience, like buying things.
Right.
And that also pushed upward pressure on the stock market, right? So when people say, okay, well, Saied, Chris, you guys are negative, you guys keep talking about all these things that could happen, like the NASDAQ coming down 20 to 40%.
Right.
Well, it's because we know that what the Fed is really trying to do is see consumer discretionary pulled back because they know they're not going to hit their numbers.
Right.
The people who are in charge of overseeing and controlling these numbers know that if people don't pull back on the spending, if they don't stop this, they don't get to their 2% target number.
Exactly. And the reason why this is such a big point to those that are uninitiated, right? Hearing that inflation stays sticky around 3%, but the Fed's target range is 2%. Like, okay, it's a percent. What's the big deal? You got to remember that this is a compounding effect year over year over year. And that sentence in the article that said that the consumer's still going out there spending, the consumer's still in good shape, like just because you see the effects that they're actually spending, does that mean they're being responsible spenders, right? People are racking up their credit card debt, like we've mentioned. We've said their savings accounts have been depleted every month for the last 23 months. I think we're currently at a pace of like $100 billion a month. Yeah, I'm still fighting it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, sorry. But I don't feel like the consumer is in as good of a shape as, some of the press is coming out and saying, and it's just pushing out more optimism than there actually should be.
Well, it's because a lot of the stuff that they're looking at, they're not only lagging indicators, but they're lagging data reporting indicators.
Correct.
So what I would say you, myself, and the world experiences firsthand by being out there and just kind of looking at things from a rational, reasonable perspective is probably a more tactile, real-time update than the data these guys are working off of when they're saying stuff like this. So a lot of times when people hear some of the people that are in charge of our country's most important financial positions speak in an openly negative way. We talked about on the prior episodes that there's an inherent bias in a lot of what people do for a living. And the Fed is no different, right? They're working off old data. They're financially disconnected to, I would say, probably the lower middle class in some ways, right? These people are high profile, and some of them have a pretty significant worth despite the money that they're making, right? And some of them make very, very good money. That being said, you look at all those things they have an inherent bias. Their bias is based on their job, the same way people in real estate have an inherent bias towards real estate. So you got to look at these things with a grain of salt. And if your working experience is going to the mall and seeing the mall less crowded, right? That's a data point. If your working experience is saying, hey, I was on a flight and it wasn't sold out, or hey, I was traveling and it wasn't as busy, those things are real tactile experiences that the consumer can make their own assessment that things are happening in real time that the Fed isn't quoting when they talk about stuff like this. So I'm already seeing the consumer discretionary pullback on some of those things that you see. When you go to the grocery store, you can see the spending has changed.
Right.
So I'm not as worried about it as this article suggests, and I really do get bothered by the idea that Clickbait's out there. And keep in mind, this is not a voting member. He's trying to sound the alarm and keep the hawkish tone the same way that the Fed wants him to, for sure. But why at all? Why is Neel Kashkari out there at all doing interviews like this?
Yeah, Fed speak, yeah.
So this is what bothers me about the Fed. You know, Jerome Powell has always held himself out there to be the most communicative Fed secretary. I would say that's a dual-edged sword. It's wonderful to be communicative, but then you leave yourself open to all the things you're not saying and all the extra stuff you are saying.
Right.
Which is too much interpretation. In my experience, I like the idea in theory of a very communicative Fed secretary, but in practice, I like it less.
Yeah.
I don't think these guys should be given interviews.